The night sky above the Lumari homeworld burned with the fires of destruction. Their cities, once gleaming with the soft blue light of their advanced technology, now glowed orange with uncontrolled flames. The Vortex assault had been swift and merciless. In the central communication tower of the capital city, three figures worked frantically. The tallest of them, Director Talus, stared at the display showing the approaching enemy ships. His normally bright silver skin had dulled to ash gray with stress and fear. "How much longer, Mira?" he asked, glancing at the engineer whose fingers flew across the control panel. "Almost ready," Mira replied without looking up. "The hyperwave transmitter is at 90% capacity." The third Lumari, a young tactical officer named Rallin, kept watch at the window. "The ground forces are breaking through the southern barrier. We have minutes at most." Talus nodded grimly. "We don't need to survive. We just need to send the call." The Lumari had been a peaceful spacefaring race for over 2,000 years. They had explored, traded, and shared knowledge across their sector of the galaxy. But they had never built weapons of war. They had never needed to. Until the Vortex arrived 6 months ago, demanding resources, territory, and submission. "Transmitter at full power," Mira announced. "The message is loaded." Talus placed his 6-fingered hand on the activation panel. "Let it be heard." With a deep hum that vibrated through the tower, the hyperwave transmitter fired. The message, a desperate plea for help encoded with the coordinates of the Lumari homeworld, shot out in all directions, traveling faster than light into the unknown depths of space. "It's done," Mira whispered. A tremendous blast shook the tower. The door to the communication room glowed red as the Vortex soldiers began cutting through. "Do you really think anyone will answer?" Raylan asked, his voice trembling. Talus stood tall as the door began to melt. "The old stories speak of warriors from beyond the outer rim. If even half the tales are true, the Vortex will regret the day they attacked our world." The door crashed open. The three Lumari faced their fate with dignity. 217 light-years away, on a small blue planet called Earth, Major Tom Reed was enjoying his coffee when the alert sounded. As Chief Communications Officer at Deep Space Monitoring Station Alpha, unexpected alerts usually meant equipment malfunction. Not today. "Sir," called Lieutenant Wilson from her station, "you need to see this." Reed crossed the room quickly. "What have we got?" "Unknown signal type, sir. It's not in any of our databases." Wilson's fingers tapped across her keyboard, but the AI is translating it as a distress call. Reed's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. "From who?" "Unknown, sir. Not human origin. Definitely not human." The room fell silent. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity had finally received proof they weren't alone, and it was a cry for help. Admiral Banks arrived within the hour. Her weathered face betrayed no emotion as she reviewed the signal data. "And we're certain this is genuine." "Yes, ma'am," Reed confirmed. "Multiple stations picked it up. The source is approximately 217 light-years from Earth." Banks nodded slowly. "Who else knows about this?" "Just the personnel in this room and the other station commanders, as per protocol." "Good." Banks straightened her uniform. "This signal needs to be classified immediately. Top level." Reed frowned. "With respect, Admiral, isn't this exactly what we've been waiting for?" "First contact." "This isn't just first contact, Major," Banks interrupted. "This is a request for military aid. That changes everything." She turned to her aide. "Initiate protocol Sleeping Giant. Authorization Banks, Alpha 70. The young aide's face paled. "Ma'am, that protocol hasn't been activated in. I know exactly how long it's been. Do it." As the aide hurried away, Reed stepped closer to Banks. "Admiral, what's protocol Sleeping Giant?" Banks looked at him with eyes that had seen too many wars on Earth. "Something we hoped we'd never need, Major. We're waking up the vanguards." In the darkness of space, Orbiting silently beyond Mars, a massive station received the activation code. Lights that had been dormant for over a century began to glow. Inside, in rows of cryogenic chambers, the first of the sleepers began to stir. Humanity's deadliest warriors were awakening. The old video played on the briefing room wall. It showed scenes from a time most people wanted to forget. The global resource wars that had nearly ended humanity 150 years ago. Major Reed watched as cities burned and armies clashed across continents. The final death toll had been in the billions. Humanity had almost destroyed itself fighting over the last oil fields, fresh water sources, and farmable land. It was at our darkest hour that the Vanguard program was born, Admiral Banks explained. When conventional warfare failed, the remaining nations pooled their resources into creating the ultimate soldiers. The video shifted to clinical laboratories where scientists worked on unconscious subjects. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. "How many people know about this?" he asked. "Less than 50 worldwide," Banks replied. "Most records were deleted during the Great Peace. The public wanted to forget the horrors we had created." The screen now showed training exercises. Men and women moving faster than seemed possible, lifting vehicles, enduring wounds that would kill ordinary humans. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light. "What exactly are they?" Lieutenant Wilson asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Banks sighed. "The term we used was enhanced humans, but there's something more. Genetic modifications for strength and speed. Neural implants for faster reactions and tactical processing. Bone and muscle reinforcements. Regenerative nanites in their bloodstream. They're weapons," Reed said flatly. "They're soldiers," Banks corrected. "The best humanity ever produced. They fought the final battles that brought the warring factions to the peace table." The video ended, showing a massive space station under construction. "When peace finally came, society had no place for them," Banks continued. "They were living reminders of mankind's darkest chapter, but the United Earth government couldn't bring themselves to eliminate them either. So a compromise was reached. The orbital platforms," Wilson realized. Banks nodded. 5 stations positioned beyond Mars. The vanguards would sleep in cryostasis until Earth needed them again. Most people alive today don't even know they exist. And now we're waking them up because of an alien distress call. Reed asked incredulously. "Those are my orders," Banks said, her face grim. "I don't like it either, but if there's a threat out there..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. In the void beyond Mars, orbital platform Alpha hummed with renewed activity. Cryostasis pods hissed open one by one as the revival sequence continued. Commander James Walker was the first to wake. His enhanced system processed the revival drugs faster than the others. Blue eyes snapped open, instantly alert despite a century of sleep. A medical robot hovered nearby. "Commander Walker, your vital signs are stable. Cognitive functions at optimal levels. Welcome back." Walker sat up, his movements precise and controlled. The last thing he remembered was the cryostasis countdown. That had been. He checked the internal clock in his neural implant, 127 years ago. "Status report," he commanded, his voice rough from disuse. "Protocol Sleeping Giant has been activated by Earth Command. Full squad revival in progress. Current year is 2237. Walker swung his legs over the side of the pod. Around him, other pods were opening. His team was waking up. Marcus Jones, his second in command, was already sitting up in his pod. Their eyes met across the room. "Guess the vacation's over," Jones said with a grim smile. Walker stood, testing his muscles. The nanites had prevented atrophy during the long sleep. He felt as strong as the day he went under. "Why now?" asked Lisa Torres, the squad's tactical specialist, as she disconnected monitoring wires from her chest. "After all this time." Walker looked at the large screen on the far wall, now displaying a message from Earth Command. "Unknown distress signal. Non-human origin. Possible first contact scenario," he read aloud. The room fell silent as the words sank in. "Computer, show me current Earth," Walker ordered. The screen changed to show a planet far different from the one they had left. The scars of the resource wars were gone. Cities gleamed with clean energy technology. The oceans were blue again. "They did it," Torres whispered. "They actually fixed it." Walker nodded slowly. "And now they need us again." He turned to face his team, now 20 awakened soldiers standing at attention. "Vanguard Unit 1, prepare for mission briefing. We've slept long enough." The forgotten warriors of humanity began to prepare for war once more. Platform Alpha, gazing at the Earth below. The planet looked peaceful from this distance. Clean blue oceans, green continents, and white polar caps. Very different from the dying world he had left behind. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jones said, joining him at the viewport. "Hard to believe we once nearly destroyed it." Walker nodded silently. Their awakening had been complete for 24 hours now. All 50 members of Vanguard Unit 1 were up and operational. The medical robots reported perfect physical condition across the board, a testament to the cryostasis technology and their enhanced bodies. "The transport from Earth is docking," Torres announced as she entered the deck. "Official delegation aboard." Walker turned from the viewport. "Time to meet our new bosses." The Earth delegation consisted of 3 people. Admiral Banks, a nervous-looking scientist named Dr. Powell, and a civilian official who introduced himself as Director Mason from the United Earth government. Their faces showed a mixture of awe and fear when confronted with the vanguards. "You're taller than I expected," Director Mason said, looking up at Walker's imposing 6'7" frame. Walker remained expert forces reduced to peacekeeping roles. Dr. Powell stepped forward. "Yes, but understanding facts is different from experiencing the cultural shift. Humanity has evolved beyond warfare. We've focused on exploration, art, philosophy. And yet here you are." Torres cut in, waking up soldiers. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. "Perhaps we should discuss the mission," Walker suggested, his enhanced eyes noting the increased heart rates of their visitors. Admiral Banks nodded gratefully. "We've analyzed the distress signal. It contains coordinates, basic identification of the sender species. They call themselves the Lumari, and details of an attack by something called the Vortec Empire." Walker activated the holographic display at the center of the room. "Show me." The signal data appeared in the air before them. The vanguards processed it instantly, their neural implants translating and analyzing faster than any normal human could. "The signal is genuine," Jones concluded, "and they're losing badly." Director Mason cleared his throat. "We face a dilemma. Earth has no standing military capable of interstellar intervention. We haven't built warships in over a century." Walker looked at Platform Alpha schematics on another display. "You don't need to. The platforms were designed for this." The Earth delegates exchanged confused glances. "I don't understand," Mason said. Walker touched the display, highlighting sections of the orbital platform. "These aren't just storage facilities. They're dormant warships. The final contingency plan if Earth ever faced extinction or needed to project force beyond the solar system." "That's impossible," Dr. Powell protested. "These platforms were built as peaceful repositories." "That's what the public was told," Walker replied. "The truth is different." He entered a command sequence into the console. The entire platform shuddered. Sections that had appeared decorative began to shift and transform. Hidden weapon systems emerged from recesses. Powerful engines activated after a century of dormancy. "My God," whispered Admiral Banks. "Platform Alpha was always meant to be our transport if we were ever awakened," Walker explained. "Built with technology decades ahead of its time, even by your standards now." Director Mason's face had gone pale. "The United Earth government never authorized." "The authorization was built into Protocol Sleeping Giant," Walker interrupted. "You activated us. You activated the ship." The platform trembled again as more systems came online. "How long would it take to reach these coordinates?" Banks asked, her professional composure returning first. Walker studied the navigation data. At maximum FTL capability, 42 days. The Earth delegates huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Finally, Banks turned back to Walker. The United Earth government has authorized a reconnaissance mission only. You are to investigate the signal, assess the situation, and report back. No combat engagement without direct authorization. Walker nodded once. Understood. After the Earth delegation departed, Jones approached Walker. Reconnaissance only. Against what sounds like a genocidal empire. Walker's face remained impassive. We have our orders. Orders from people who haven't seen war in over a century, Torres added. Walker watched as Platform Alpha, now revealed as Earth's most powerful warship, completed its transformation. We'll follow our orders, he said quietly, until the situation requires otherwise. Space bent around Platform Alpha as it dropped out of FTL travel. The massive ship, now fully transformed into its true form, entered the Lumari home system with sensors at maximum range. Walker stood on the command deck, his enhanced vision taking in the tactical displays. What he saw made even his engineered composure falter. Destruction on a planetary scale, Torres reported, her voice tight. Multiple cities burning. Orbital installations destroyed. Debris fields consistent with recent space battles. Life signs? Walker asked. Jones checked the readings. Scattered populations in underground shelters. Several million survivors, but their numbers are dropping hourly. Walker zoomed in on a section of the main display. Enemy ships. 3 large vessels in orbit, Torres confirmed. Design unknown, but heavily armed. Roughly 20 smaller craft performing bombing runs on the surface. Walker's mind processed the tactical situation with inhuman speed. Prepare boarding shuttles. Full combat loadout for all Vanguard teams. Commander, Jones reminded him. Our orders were reconnaissance only. Walker turned to look at his second-in-command. The mission parameters have changed. We are witnessing active genocide. No one on the command deck disagreed. Incoming transmission, announced Lynn, their communications specialist. From the surface. Put it through, Walker ordered. The main screen flickered to show a Lumari face. Silver skin, now smudged with ash and blood, and large eyes that widened further at the sight of the humans. You came, the Lumari said in a halting voice, the ship's translation system working perfectly. The signal was answered. I am Commander Walker of Earth Vessel Alpha. We received your distress call. The Lumari, who introduced himself as Valen, a military coordinator for the remaining resistance, explained their desperate situation. The Vortec had attacked without warning 6 months earlier, systematically destroying Lumari defenses and infrastructure. We sent the signal into deep space as our final act, Valen explained, based on ancient records that spoke of powerful warriors beyond the rim. We never truly believed. These records, Walker interrupted. What did they say exactly? Valen's expression shifted. They told of a species that mastered the art of war like no other. A species so dangerous they locked away their own warriors rather than risk their power. The records were thousands of years old. Most considered them myths. Walker and Jones exchanged glances. The timeline didn't make sense. Humanity had only achieved spaceflight a few centuries ago. Someone visited Earth long before we were spacefaring, Torres whispered, and saw what we were capable of. Before Walker could pursue this line of questioning, alarms blared across the command deck. Enemy ships are moving to intercept, Torres reported. They've detected us. Walker made his decision. Bring weapons systems online. Launch defensive drones. All Vanguards to battle stations. The ship hummed as systems dormant for more than a century activated. Commander, Lynn called out, we're being hailed by the largest enemy vessel. The screen changed to show a Vortec commander. The alien was reptilian in appearance, with gray scales and yellow eyes that narrowed at the sight of the humans. Unknown vessel, the Vortec hissed. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." Walker stepped forward. "I am Commander Walker of Earth. We are responding to a distress call from the Lumari people." The Vortec commander's scaled face showed surprise, then amusement. "Earth, we have no records of your species. Leave now or be destroyed with the rest of these weaklings." Walker's expression remained neutral. "We will not leave." The Vortec laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Then you will die. Our scans show your vessel is significantly outmatched." "Your scans," Walker replied calmly, "are incomplete." He cut the transmission with a gesture. "They're powering weapons," Torres reported. Walker turned to his crew. "Defensive formation Alpha. Prepare to engage." He paused, then added, "The Vortec have never faced humans before. Let's make sure they never forget this encounter." As the vanguards moved to their positions, Walker sent a final message to Earth, knowing it would take days to arrive. "Earth Command, we have made contact with the Lumari. Enemy forces engaged in systematic extermination. Peaceful resolution impossible. Vanguard Unit 1 moving to intervene." The first Vortec shots flashed across space toward Platform Alpha. Humanity's deadliest warriors were about to show the galaxy why they had been feared enough to be locked away. "Target their weapon systems only." Jones gave him a questioning look. "Only weapons. We could end this now." "We're not here to exterminate," Walker replied. "We're here to stop an extermination." A swarm of small, sleek drones launched from hidden bays on Alpha's hull. They moved with incredible speed, evading Vortec defenses and striking with surgical precision. "Enemy weapons at 60% capacity," Torres reported. "Our shields holding at 92%. Walker nodded. "Launch boarding teams." 5 shuttles shot from Alpha's launch bays. Each carried 10 vanguards in full combat armor, matte black suits that enhanced their already formidable abilities. Walker had stayed behind to command the operation, but Jones led the main assault team. Inside the lead shuttle, Jones checked his plasma rifle one last time. "Remember, we take prisoners if possible. Earth will want information." The vanguards nodded silently. After a century of sleep, they were finally doing what they were created for. The shuttles approached the main Vortec vessel, dodging increasingly desperate defensive fire. Their enhanced pilots maneuvered with inhuman precision, finding gaps in the enemy's coverage. "Breaching in 3, 2, 1. Jones called as his shuttle slammed into the Vortec ship's hull. Specialized cutting tools created an entry point in seconds. The vanguards poured into the alien ship. The Vortec soldiers that met them had never faced anything like these humans. Enhanced speed made the vanguards appear to blur as they moved. Their armor deflected energy weapons, and their strength let them tear through barriers with their bare hands when necessary. Jones led his team straight toward the bridge, following the ship schematics their scanners had mapped. They encountered heavy resistance at a security checkpoint. "Take cover," Jones shouted as Vortec heavy weapons opened fire. The vanguards responded with perfect coordination. 2 soldiers provided covering fire, while 3 others flanked the position. Their tactical implants allowed them to communicate silently, executing complex maneuvers without speaking. Within minutes, the checkpoint was secure. Most of the Vortec defenders were unconscious, knocked out by precision strikes rather than killed. "Bridge ahead," Torres reported through the comm link from Platform Alpha. 20 life signs detected. Jones signaled his team to prepare breaching charges. Going in hot. The bridge doors exploded inward. The vanguards entered in a textbook assault formation, disabling the Vortec crew before they could react. The Vortec commander found himself pinned against a control panel with Jones' forearm across his throat. "Signal your fleet to stand down," Jones ordered, the translation system in his helmet converting his words. The Vortec commander's yellow eyes burned with hatred. "The Vortec Empire does not surrender." Jones increased the pressure slightly. "This isn't about surrender. It's about survival." Back on Platform Alpha, Walker watched as the other Vanguard teams secured the remaining Vortec ships. The operation had taken less than 30 minutes. Incoming transmission from the surface, Lynn announced. Valen's face appeared on screen, his expression one of stunned amazement. You defeated them. Just like that. Walker nodded once. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We've taken prisoners for interrogation. But the Vortek never lose, Valen said, his voice trembling. Their empire spans dozens of systems. They'll send more ships when they learn what happened. Let them come, Walker replied calmly. Meanwhile, we'll help your people and prepare defenses. The communication with Valen ended, and Walker turned to Torres. Status report on Jones' team. Main Vortek vessel secure. Minimal casualties on both sides. They're downloading the ship's database now. Walker allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. Send teams to the surface. Medical assistance first, then begin training any Lumari who want to fight. Sir, Lynn interrupted, we're detecting multiple transmissions across local space. The battle was observed by other systems. Walker raised an eyebrow. Show me. The tactical display expanded to show nearby star systems. Many were sending communications toward the Lumari world. They're asking about us, Lynn explained. Word is spreading about warriors who defeated the Vortek. Walker considered this development. Respond truthfully but carefully. We didn't come here to start a war, but we won't allow genocide. As the vanguards began landing on the Lumari homeworld, the stories of their combat prowess spread faster than light across the sector. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not with diplomacy or trade, but by doing what they had been engineered to do, fight, and win against impossible odds. Hashtag airing the atmosphere, the third such arrival today. Another delegation. Jones checked his datapad. The Terran Collective. That makes 7 different species in the past week. Word had spread quickly about the warriors who had defeated the Vortek. Representatives from nearby systems had begun arriving. Some seeking protection, others curious about these newcomers, and a few offering alliance. Commander Walker, a Lumari aide approached. The council is gathering. Your presence is requested. Walker followed the aide to the newly established meeting hall. Inside, representatives from 7 alien species sat around a large table. Valen, now appointed as the Lumari's main spokesperson, stood to greet him. Commander, thank you for joining us. Valen gestured to the assembled aliens. Our friends have a proposal. A tall, 4-armed being with purple skin stood up. I am Ambassador Krell of the Terran Collective. We have suffered under Vortek oppression for decades. What your vanguards accomplished in one day, we could not achieve in years of resistance. Another representative, a floating ball of blue energy contained in a mechanical shell, pulsed brightly. The Vortek will return. Our intelligence suggests they are gathering their main fleet. They cannot allow this defeat to go unanswered. Walker listened calmly. We anticipated this. My people are preparing defenses. Not just defenses, Krell said, leaning forward. We propose an alliance, a coalition of all species threatened by the Vortek, with your warriors leading our combined forces. Walker's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced. This went far beyond their original mission parameters. Such a decision would require authorization from Earth, he replied carefully. We understand, Valen said, but time is short. The Vortek will return within weeks, not months. Walker nodded. I will consult with my superiors. Back on Platform Alpha, Walker sent an urgent message to Earth. The response came faster than expected. Admiral Banks herself on a direct communication channel. The United Earth government has reviewed your reports, Commander, Banks said, her image flickering slightly over the vast distance. The situation has exceeded our expectations. We need direction, Walker replied simply. Banks sighed. Earth is reluctant to be drawn into an interstellar conflict. However, we cannot ignore the humanitarian crisis. Your new orders are to provide defensive support only. No offensive operations against Vortek holdings. With respect, Admiral, a purely defensive strategy will fail. The Vortek Empire controls too many resources. Banks was silent for a moment. What do you propose, Commander? A limited strike at their command structure. Their military is hierarchical. Remove the leadership, and their forces become disorganized. The Admiral's face showed conflict. The Vanguard program was created to defend humanity, not to police the galaxy. The Vanguards were created to fight wars that needed fighting. Walker countered. Wars that others couldn't win. After a long pause, Banks nodded. Very well. Limited offensive operations are authorized, but only to secure the Lumari system and immediate allies. Earth is not prepared for full-scale interstellar conflict. Walker sent acknowledgement, then returned to the coalition meeting. The alien representatives watched him expectantly. Earth has authorized limited support, Walker announced. We will help defend your worlds and train your forces. Relief washed over the gathering. But, Walker continued, defeating the Vortek will require more than defense. We need to strike at their command structure, their leadership. Ambassador Krell leaned forward. The Vortek Supreme Commander directs all military operations from their flagship, the Dominion. It's heavily guarded, at the center of their fleet. Walker nodded. Then that's our target. As the meeting continued, plans taking shape, Jones approached Walker quietly. A direct assault on their flagship. That's a suicide mission, he whispered. Walker's eyes showed a cold certainty. We were never expected to grow old, Jones. We were made for missions like this. The coalition forces began preparations for the coming battle. The Vanguards, created in humanity's darkest hour, now stood as the unlikely saviors of species they hadn't known existed mere weeks ago. Walker addressed the coalition forces one final time. Today we fight not just for the Lumari, but for every species that values freedom. The Vortek believes strength gives them the right to conquer. Today, we show them true strength. The coalition ships moved into attack formation. Walker took his place with the boarding party. As commander, he could have stayed behind, but this mission was too important. Launch, he ordered. The battle erupted across space. Coalition ships darted between the larger Vortek vessels, using speed and maneuverability to avoid direct confrontation. Their goal wasn't to destroy the enemy fleet, but to create confusion and openings for the strike teams. Walker's shuttle slipped through the chaos, protected by drone fighters. The Vanguard sat in silence, each reviewing the mission in their enhanced minds. They would have one chance to reach the Vortek Supreme Commander. Approaching target, the pilot announced. Point of entry identified. The shuttle slammed against the Dominion's hull. Cutting tools burned through the metal as alarms blared inside the Vortek ship. Breach complete, Jones reported. Moving in. 20 Vanguards entered the flagship, Walker and Jones in the lead. The internal layout matched the schematics they had extracted from the captured Vortek database. They moved with precision toward the command center, encountering heavy resistance. Commander, Torres called through the comm. Coalition forces are taking heavy losses. Hold position, Walker ordered. We need 10 more minutes. The Vanguards fought their way deeper into the ship. Their combat enhancements gave them advantages the Vortek had never encountered. Superhuman speed, strength, and coordination. Still, the elite Vortek guards were formidable opponents. Walker took a glancing hit from an energy weapon, the blast scorching his armor. He kept moving, his nanites already repairing the minor damage to his body beneath. Command center ahead, Jones announced. Heavily guarded. Walker assessed the situation quickly. Formation Delta. The Vanguard split into 3 groups, attacking from multiple angles. The Vortek guards, despite their training, couldn't respond effectively to the coordinated assault. Within minutes, Walker stood before the massive doors of the command center. Breach it. The doors exploded inward. The Vanguard surged into the room, neutralizing the defensive positions with practiced efficiency. At the center stood the Vortek Supreme Commander, larger than ordinary Vortek, with scales that gleamed like polished metal. He held an energy staff that crackled with power. So, the Supreme Commander hissed, The mysterious humans have come to die personally. Walker stepped forward, removing his helmet. We've come to end this war. The Supreme Commander laughed. There is no war, only conquest. The strong rule. That is the way of the universe. Not anymore, Walker replied. The fight was brief but intense. The Supreme Commander was powerful, but Walker had been engineered for combat at a level no natural evolution could match. His enhanced reflexes and strength ultimately overcame the Vortec leader's experience. With the Supreme Commander pinned against his own control console, Walker made his offer. Order your fleet to stand down, and you live. Continue fighting, and none of you leave this system. The Vortec commander's yellow eyes narrowed, calculating his options. Finally, he reached for the communication system. All ships, cease fire. Stand down. Across the system, the Vortec fleet halted their attack. The coalition forces, though damaged, had held long enough. 3 days later, Walker stood with representatives from 12 species as the Vortec signed a formal surrender. The empire that had terrorized this sector of space for generations had been broken not by overwhelming force, but by precise, strategic intervention. Ambassador Krell approached Walker after the ceremony. Your people have given us something we thought impossible. Peace. Walker nodded. It's what we were made for, in the end. And now? Valen asked, joining them. Will you return to Earth? Walker looked out at the stars. Some of us will. Others have requested to stay, to help build the defensive network for this alliance. And you, Commander? Krell inquired. Walker watched as vanguards and aliens worked together, rebuilding what war had destroyed. His team had been created for destruction, but perhaps their legacy could be something else. I think, Walker said quietly, humanity's deadliest warriors have found a new purpose. Across the galaxy, word spread of the humans who had defeated the Vortec. Earth, once isolated and unknown, now found itself part of something greater, a protector rather than a threat, turning tools of war into instruments of peace. The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none as urgent as the one that reached Earth on a quiet Tuesday morning. At the United Nations Space Command Headquarters in Geneva, the monitoring systems suddenly flickered with activity. An anomalous signal, weak but persistent, pushed through the cosmic background noise. Jack Perry, the night shift communications officer, nearly spilled his coffee when the alert flashed across his screen. He had monitored space for 15 years, and in all that time, nothing like this had ever appeared. His fingers moved quickly across the interface as he isolated the signal. "Command, this is Perry at Station 6. I'm picking up something unusual," he reported, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Sending it to analysis now." Within minutes, Captain James Walker entered the communications center, his tall frame casting a shadow over Perry's workstation. Walker had earned his reputation as Earth's foremost expert on deep space communications, having decoded messages from the farthest human colonies. "Show me," he ordered, his blue eyes focused intently on the screen. Perry pulled up the waveform, a strange pattern that pulsed with an almost deliberate rhythm. "It's coming from Sector 419, well beyond our outer colonies. No human ships are registered in that region." Walker leaned closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This isn't random. These patterns." He tapped a sequence on the screen. "They're structured. This is language." "Alien?" Perry whispered, the word hanging heavy in the air. Walker didn't answer immediately. He plugged his personal device into the console and ran his specialized decoding algorithms. The command center fell silent as staff gathered around, watching numbers and symbols flash across multiple screens. After 20 tense minutes, Walker straightened up. "It's a distress call," he announced, "and it contains coordinates." Admiral Frank Thompson, the aging head of UNSC, called an emergency meeting within the hour. The highest-ranking military officials from around the world gathered in the secure conference room, their faces grim as Walker presented his findings. "The message repeats in a mathematical sequence that can't be natural," Walker explained, projecting the decoded fragments onto the main screen. "We've only translated parts, but the meaning is clear. Someone out there is asking for help." General Laura Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Forces, crossed her arms. "Or it's a trap. We've had peace for 30 years, but that doesn't mean threats don't exist." "If it is genuine," Walker countered, "we're talking about a civilization in danger." "They sent these coordinates." He highlighted a star system on the galactic map. "They're facing extinction," and reached out across space, hoping someone would answer. "We're not the galaxy's police force," Colonel Bill Martin argued. "We have our own problems here on Earth." Walker stood straighter, his voice gaining strength. "For centuries, humanity wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're not, and the first clear message we receive is a cry for help. What does it say about us if we ignore it?" The debate continued for hours. Finally, Admiral Thompson raised his hand for silence. "If this is legitimate, we have a moral duty to respond," he said slowly. "If it's a trap, we need to know who said it and why they're targeting Earth. Either way, we can't ignore this." He turned to General Hayes. "Activate the War Giants program." A collective gasp filled the room. The War Giants, Earth's most powerful military vessels, had been built after the colony wars as a deterrent, then mothballed during the decades of peace that followed. Massive, devastatingly armed, and crewed by the best military personnel, they represented humanity's ultimate expression of force. "Sir," Hayes said, "those ships haven't been deployed in 30 years. "Then it's time to wake them up," Thompson replied. "Captain Walker, you'll join the mission as communications specialist. We need someone who understands that signal." As the meeting dispersed, Walker stood alone at the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, someone was calling for help. Or something was waiting, watching Earth's reaction. Either way, humanity's peaceful isolation was over. The War Giants were awakening, and nothing in the galaxy would be the same again. Deep beneath the lunar surface, hidden from casual observation, 5 massive hangars hummed back to life. Lights flickered on sequentially, illuminating the sleeping behemoths within. The war giants, humanity's ultimate weapons, had rested here for 3 decades, their immense power contained and forgotten. Until now. Admiral Elena Reyes stepped off the shuttle, her weathered face expressionless, as she surveyed the bustling activity around her. At 62, she had hoped to spend her retirement fishing at her cabin in Montana. Instead, here she was, recalled to duty for what might be humanity's most important mission. "Admiral on deck," someone shouted, and the technicians and officers snapped to attention. "As you were," Reyes said, her voice carrying despite its softness. She approached the observation window that overlooked the main hangar, where the largest of the war giants waited. The Thunderchild, her old command. The massive battleship stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its dark hull gleaming under the work lights. Unlike the sleek vessels of the regular fleet, the war giants were built for one purpose: overwhelming force. Their angular, fortress-like design housed weapons systems that could crack planets. "She's still beautiful," said a voice beside her. Reyes turned to find Captain Walker standing at attention. "You must be our signal expert," she said. Walker nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I've been working around the clock on the alien transmission. And I've decoded more fragments. Whatever sent this signal was desperate." He handed her a tablet. "They mention hunters and devourers. They were being systematically destroyed." Reyes studied the information, her expression hardening. "Could still be a trap. Maybe. But that fear is reaching us across light years. Admiral, it feels real." Below them, a team of engineers swarmed around Thunderchild's main engines, removing the protective coverings that had kept them dormant for decades. The other 4 war giants, Defiance, Retribution, Valiant, and Judgment, underwent similar preparations in adjacent hangars. Admiral Reyes, a young officer, approached and saluted. Technical Officer Marcus Davis reporting for duty. Reyes returned the salute. "At ease, Davis. What's our status?" "The Thunderchild systems are at 87% operational capacity. We've replaced the outdated components and upgraded the weapon systems." Davis hesitated. "But there's something else you should see." He led Reyes and Walker to a sealed laboratory, where a team of scientists worked around a central holographic display. "We've been analyzing the signal's origin point," Davis explained. "These are scans from our long-range telescopes." The hologram showed a star system with 9 planets. One of them, once clearly habitable, was now surrounded by debris. "That planet suffered a catastrophic event approximately 45 Earth days ago," Davis said. "The surface shows massive destruction consistent with orbital bombardment." Walker stepped closer to the display. "The distress signal is still transmitting from the surface. Someone survived." Reyes studied the images, her military mind calculating trajectories and scenarios. "How long until we're ready to launch?" 72 hours, Admiral," Davis replied. "The crews are being assembled now." Throughout the lunar base, thousands of personnel, many pulled from retirement like Reyes, prepared for deployment. The best pilots, engineers, and soldiers humanity had to offer, gathering for what might be a rescue mission or a war. In her temporary quarters, Reyes reviewed the crew manifests. Each war giant required a crew of 500 to operate at full capacity, 2,500 of Earth's finest, heading into unknown danger. On the final day before launch, Reyes addressed the assembled crews from Thunderchild's command deck, her image transmitted to the other 4 vessels. "We don't know what awaits us at these coordinates," she said, her voice steady. "We hope to find survivors we can help. We prepare to find enemies we must fight. Either way, we carry with us the full weight of Earth's resolve." She paused, looking at the determined faces before her. The war giants were built to ensure humanity's survival. Today, we extend that promise to those who called for help. Launch in 6 hours. Dismissed. As the crews dispersed to their final preparations, Reyes stood alone on the bridge, watching as technicians brought the massive engines online. The deck hummed beneath her feet as Thunderchild awakened, ready to carry Earth's might to the stars, and perhaps into battle. 3 weeks of faster-than-light travel left the crew of Thunderchild tense and restless. The 5 war giants moved in perfect formation through the void, their massive engines bending space itself as they traversed the gap between stars. On Thunderchild's observation deck, Lieutenant Tom Fletcher stared out at the emptiness, his reflection ghostly in the reinforced glass. At 32, he commanded the ship's ground forces, though none of them had expected to actually use their training. Space exploration had been peaceful for decades. "Lieutenant," a voice called. Fletcher turned to see Technical Officer Davis approaching with a datapad. "We're approaching the coordinates. Admiral wants all team leaders in the command center." Fletcher nodded, taking one last look at the stars before following Davis through Thunderchild's maze-like corridors. The ship had been designed with warfare in mind, redundant systems, armored compartments, and enough firepower to reduce a continent to ash. In the command center, Admiral Reyes stood before the main view screen, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. The other team leaders had already assembled, their faces showing a mixture of anticipation and dread. "We exit hyperspace in 5 minutes, Reyes announced. "Sensors detect significant debris in the target system. Battle stations, just in case." Throughout the war giants, alarms sounded as crews moved to their combat positions. Weapon systems hummed to life, shields raised to maximum power. No one knew what awaited them, but they would be ready. Exiting hyperspace in 3, 2, 1, the navigation officer counted down. Reality seemed to twist, and suddenly the blackness of deep space was replaced by a star system in ruin. The view screen showed a yellow sun surrounded by planets, and destruction. The 4th planet, once clearly habitable, was partially shattered. Massive chunks of its crust floated in orbit, creating a ring of debris where cities might once have stood. "My God," Fletcher whispered. "Scan for life signs," Reyes ordered, her voice steady despite the horror before them. Davis worked his console quickly. Very faint readings from the southern hemisphere of the damaged planet. There's still an atmosphere in some areas, but it's deteriorating. Captain Walker approached the Admiral. "The distress signal is still active. Someone down there is still alive." Reyes nodded. "Lieutenant Fletcher, prepare a recon team. Full environmental suits and weapons. We don't know what did this or if it's still here." Within the hour, Fletcher led a dropship toward the planet's surface, accompanied by a squad of 20 elite soldiers and Walker, who insisted on coming to track the signal source. The dropship weaved through the debris field, the pilots skillfully avoiding chunks of what had once been mountains and cities. They landed in a valley surrounded by crumbling skyscrapers. The buildings were unlike anything human, curves and spirals of iridescent material that somehow remained standing despite the devastation. "Atmosphere is thin but breathable in an emergency," reported Sergeant Kate Miller, checking her equipment. "Background radiation elevated but not immediately dangerous." Fletcher nodded, signaling the team to move out. They advanced through the silent city, weapons ready, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. "The signal's coming from that structure," Walker said, pointing to a dome-shaped building half buried in rubble. As they approached, Fletcher noticed strange markings on the walls, symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. "Walker, can you read this?" Walker studied the markings, similar to patterns in the distress call. "I think it's a research facility." The entrance was blocked, but they found a side passage that led underground. The interior was dark, lit only by emergency lighting that cast eerie blue shadows. They moved deeper, following Walker's signal tracker. In a central chamber, they found what they were looking for, and more. A lone figure hunched over a console, tapping weakly at controls. The being was humanoid but clearly alien. tall and slender with 4 arms and silvery skin that reflected the blue light. It turned as they entered, compound eyes widening. "It's still alive," Fletcher breathed. The alien raised one hand in what seemed a universal gesture of peace, then spoke in a raspy, clicking language that none of them understood. Walker stepped forward, activating his translation device. "We received your distress call. We're from Earth." The alien trembled, either from fear or excitement. When it spoke again, Walker's device processed the sounds. "You came," the translation rendered in halting English. "But too late for my people. The Void Hunters found us first." "Who are you?" Fletcher asked. "I am Krell, last scientist of the Luminary." The alien's eyes dimmed. "And you have just entered a war zone." The command center of Thunderchild fell silent as Lieutenant Fletcher's voice crackled through the communication system. "Admiral, we've made contact with a survivor. Calls himself Krell, claims to be from a species called the Luminary. He says the attackers, Void Hunters, might return any moment." Admiral Rice leaned forward in her command chair. "Bring him aboard immediately. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Yes, Mom. Preparing for extraction now." As the dropship returned to Thunderchild with its alien passenger, Rise ordered the war giants into defensive formation around the ruined planet. Sensors swept the surrounding space, searching for any sign of hostile forces. Communications Officer Wright, Rise called to a young woman monitoring the long-range scanners. "Any unusual transmissions?" Lisa Wright shook her head, her dark braids swinging with the movement. "Nothing yet, Admiral. Space is quiet. Too quiet, considering the destruction we're seeing." Within the hour, Fletcher's team returned with Krell. The alien scientist moved with difficulty in the ship's gravity, his silver skin dull with exhaustion. Despite his alien appearance, the crew could read the grief in his posture. In the briefing room, Krell used Walker's translation device to explain what had happened. "The Void Hunters came without warning," he said, his voice translated into flat, mechanical English. "They devour worlds, strip them of resources, life, even history. My people were peaceful. We had no weapons to match theirs." "How many ships?" Rise asked. "Hundreds," Krell replied. "Like black stars, consuming everything they touch." As if summoned by his words, alarms blared throughout the ship. Wright's voice came over the intercom, tense but controlled. "Admiral, multiple objects just appeared at the edge of the system. They're moving fast, too fast for normal engines." Rise rushed back to the command center, the others following. On the main screen, dozens of black shapes had appeared, moving toward the war giants with frightening speed. "They found you by following your signal," Krell whispered. "They always return to finish what they start." "Battle stations," Rise ordered. Her voice rang throughout all 5 war giants. "This is not a drill. Unknown hostiles approaching." Across the fleet, crews raced to their posts. Weapons systems powered up. Shields strengthened, engines primed for combat maneuvers. These ships had been built for this moment, to face threats beyond human imagination. "Enemy count at 100 and rising," reported Davis from his station. No response to communication attempts. Ray studied the approaching vessels. Unlike the blocky, practical design of human ships, these were smooth and curved, almost organic in appearance. Their surfaces absorbed light rather than reflected it, creating the impression of moving holes in space. "They're surrounding us," Fletcher observed, now back at his tactical station. "Then we break their circle," Rice decided. Valiant and Retribution moved to quadrants 2 and 4, Defiance and Judgment, maintain position near the planet. Thunderchild will advance to meet their center. The war giants moved with surprising grace for their size, splitting into the ordered formation. Thunderchild's massive engines pushed it forward, directly toward the approaching enemy. "They're accelerating," Davis warned. "Impact in 30 seconds. Hold position," Rice commanded. "Charge the main cannons." Across Thunderchild's hull, enormous weapon ports opened, revealing the planet-killer weaponry that gave the war giants their fearsome reputation. 15 seconds to contact. Davis counted down. 10, 5. Fire, Rise ordered calmly. White-hot energy erupted from Thunderchild's bow, a concentrated beam that sliced through the darkness of space. When it hit the lead Void Hunter vessel, the black ship simply disappeared, vaporized in an instant. For a moment, the enemy formation faltered. Then, as one, they attacked. Space lit up with weapons fire. The Void Hunters moved with uncanny coordination, pouring strange purple energy beams toward the human ships. Where the beams struck the war giants' shields, reality itself seemed to warp. Shields at 80%, reported the defensive systems officer. Their weapons are unlike anything we've encountered. Rays watched as Valiant and Retribution joined the battle, their own weapons cutting through multiple enemy vessels. But for every Void Hunter ship destroyed, 3 more seemed to appear. They're calling for reinforcements, Wright announced suddenly. I've intercepted transmissions, not language exactly, but patterns. They're surprised by our resistance. Good, Rice said grimly. Let's give them something else to be surprised about. Execute attack pattern Omega. The 5 war giants suddenly accelerated in different directions, their movements precisely calculated. As they moved, they fired simultaneously, creating a crossfire that caught dozens of Void Hunter ships. For the first time in centuries, humanity's full military might was unleashed among the stars. And for the first time, the Void Hunters retreated. Red emergency lights bathed Thunderchild's medical bay as Technical Officer Davis helped repair a damaged console. The battle had left all 5 war giants wounded but intact, a testament to their creator's foresight. Repair crews worked around the clock, patching hull breaches and restoring critical systems. In a makeshift laboratory nearby, Krell sat hunched over samples of Void Hunter debris recovered after the battle. The alien scientist moved with renewed purpose, his 4 hands working different instruments simultaneously. Their technology is partially organic, Krell explained as Davis approached. The ships are grown, not built. Davis leaned closer to examine the black material. Unlike metal, it seemed to pulse slightly, as if still alive despite being separated from its vessel. How do you fight an enemy like that? Davis wondered aloud. Until your arrival, no one had, Krell replied. The Void Hunters have consumed 12 civilizations that I know of. My people were part of a loose federation of peaceful species. We shared knowledge, art, medicine, but not weapons. We never believed we needed them. Davis frowned. This federation, could other members still exist? Allies who might help us? Krell's compound eyes dimmed. The Luminary were the last. The others fell one by one, over many years. The Void Hunters are methodical in their consumption. In the command center, Admiral Rice met with her senior officers. Damage reports and tactical analyses covered the displays around them. They've withdrawn beyond the system's edge, reported Lieutenant Fletcher. But our long-range scans show activity. They're regrouping. Captain Walker nodded. And according to Wright's analysis of their transmissions, they're calling for reinforcements. Wright studied the star map thoughtfully. How long until they return? At their demonstrated speed, less than 48 hours, Fletcher answered, and likely with a much larger force. Communications Officer Wright entered the room, her face grave. Admiral, I've completed the full analysis of the original distress signal. There's something you need to see. She plugged her data pad into the main display. The familiar pattern of the SOS appeared, but now with a complete timestamp. This signal, Wright said, pointing to the data, was sent 27 years ago. A heavy silence fell over the room. That's impossible, Fletcher finally said. The attack on this planet happened less than 2 months ago. The planet, yes, Wright agreed. But according to this data, the Luminary Federation has been fighting a losing war against the Void Hunters for decades. This particular signal has been repeating automatically all that time. Davis entered with Krell, catching the end of Wright's explanation. "Is this true?" Rise asked the alien directly. "Was this signal sent decades ago?" Krell hesitated, his silver skin flushing slightly darker. "The original call for help was sent when the first world fell. Our automated beacons were designed to continue broadcasting until help arrived or until destroyed. So this wasn't about saving your people," Fletcher said, anger edging his voice. "This was about luring someone else in to fight your war." "No," Krell protested. "The call was genuine. We did need help. We still do. I am the last of my kind because help never came. Until now." Walker had been quiet, analyzing the data. Now he looked up. "Admiral, I've been tracking the Void Hunters' movement patterns from the information Krell provided, and our sensor readings. They've been moving in a specific direction for decades." He highlighted a section of the star map, extending the trajectory. A straight line pointed directly to Earth. "We weren't responding to a rescue call," Rise said slowly. "Earth was their next target all along." The revelation hit everyone like a physical blow. They hadn't stumbled into someone else's war. They had discovered the enemy already en route to their home. "We need to warn Earth," Fletcher urged. "Send a ship back immediately." Rise calculated the distances in her head. At maximum speed, it would take 3 weeks to reach Earth. By then, the Void Hunters' reinforcements will be here, and will be overwhelmed. She looked at each face in turn. "If we retreat, we lead them straight to an unprepared Earth." "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" Walker asked. Rise stood straighter, her decision made. "We make our stand here. If we can't defeat them, we'll ensure they never reach Earth." She turned to Krell. "You've watched them longer than anyone. Help us find their weakness." "The Void Hunters fear nothing," Krell said, "except perhaps worthy adversaries. And you, humans, you may be the first they faced. Then let's show them what Earth's war giants can really do," Rise declared. "Because we're not just fighting for a fallen civilization now. We're fighting for our own." The war giants floated in the darkness of space, 5 sentinels against the coming storm. Repair crews had worked tirelessly, patching damaged systems and readying weapons. Now they waited, every crew member at their battle stations. Admiral Rise stood on Thunderchild's bridge, hands clasped behind her back as she studied the tactical display. The plan they had developed was desperate, perhaps even suicidal, but it was all they had. "Contact," Davis announced, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Multiple signatures appearing at the system's edge. The main screen lit up with incoming vessels. Not hundreds this time, but thousands. A swarm of Void Hunter ships stretching across space like a dark cloud. Rise took a deep breath. "Send the signal. Initiate Protocol Thermopylae." Throughout the 5 war giants, commanders received their final orders. The ships began to move, separating into predetermined positions. Unlike their previous formation, they now spread widely across the system. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," Wright confirmed. "Defiance is in position at the gas giant. Valiant has reached the asteroid belt. Retribution and Judgment are flanking the main approach vector." "And the infiltration team?" Rise asked. Fletcher checked his tactical display. "Captain Walker's shuttle is away, using the battle as cover. The Void Hunters won't detect them among all the debris." Aboard a small, heavily modified shuttle, Walker and a team of 7 elite soldiers accelerated toward the center of the Void Hunter formation. Their vessel had been coated with recovered Void Hunter material, masking their signature from enemy sensors. "Remember," Walker told his team, "we have one shot at this." Krell's analysis suggests their ship's linked to a central command vessel. We find it, we might find their weakness. Inside Thunderchild's laboratory, Krell worked frantically with Davis, analyzing the recovered Void Hunter technology. The aliens' 4 hands moved with increasing urgency. "The connection between vessels is both technological and biological," Krell explained. "They share information instantly, like neurons in a brain." "Could we disrupt that connection?" Davis asked. Perhaps, Krell manipulated a sample under specialized equipment. Every biological system has vulnerabilities. The battle began with devastating fury. The Void Hunters attacked in coordinated waves, their black ships swarming toward the separated war giants. But this time, humanity's vessels were ready. Defiance, commanded by Commander Ryan Foster, used the gas giant's gravity to accelerate, swinging around the massive planet and emerging behind a cluster of enemy ships. Its weapons tore through the surprised Void Hunters before they could react. Multiple enemies destroyed, Foster reported, moving to secondary target group. Across the system, Valiant and Judgment engaged their own targets, their massive cannons creating expanding spheres of destruction wherever they fired. Retribution launched swarms of automated drones that confused and divided the Void Hunter formations. But despite their initial success, the humans were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The Void Hunters adapted quickly, changing tactics to counter the war giant's strategy. "Hull breach on Deck 7, shouted a crew member on Thunderchild's bridge. "Void Hunters have attached to our starboard section." "Security teams respond," Rise ordered calmly. "Prepare for possible boarding action." Throughout Thunderchild, soldiers moved to defensive positions as cutting sounds echoed through the hull. In some sections, black tendrils pushed through, seeking control systems. Meanwhile, Walker's infiltration team had reached what Krell had identified as the command vessel, a massive ship at the center of the Void Hunter formation. Unlike the others, this one pulsed with a purple glow. "We've attached to their hull," reported Sergeant Miller. "Cutting through now." The team breached the Void Hunter vessel, entering a nightmarish environment. Unlike human ships with their rigid corridors and compartments, this interior was organic. Pulsing walls, flowing fluids in transparent tubes, and surfaces that seemed to react to their presence. "Stay together," Walker ordered. "Remember the target." They fought their way deeper, encountering strange, semi-mechanical guardians that defended the ship's core. The team lost 2 members before reaching a central chamber where a massive structure pulsed with energy. "This is it," Walker said, scanning the organic machinery. "The coordination center." As Walker studied the alien technology, Defiance found itself surrounded by hundreds of Void Hunter vessels. "We can't break through," Commander Foster reported, his voice steady despite the dire situation. "Admiral, we're taking heavy damage." On Thunderchild's bridge, Rise received similar reports from the other war giants. The Void Hunters were too many, their adaptability too great. "Commander Foster," Rise said, "initiate sacrifice protocol." There was a brief pause. "Understood, Admiral. It's been an honor." On the screen, Defiance suddenly accelerated toward the densest concentration of Void Hunter ships. Its engines glowed white-hot as safety systems were bypassed, pushing the massive vessel beyond its limits. "Defiance is on collision course," Fletcher reported quietly. The crew watched as the war giant rammed into the enemy formation, its reactors deliberately overloading at the moment of impact. The explosion consumed Defiance and hundreds of Void Hunter ships in a blinding flash. Rice stood silent for a moment, honoring the sacrifice, before turning to her crew. "That's bought us time. Now we need Walker to find that weakness." Inside the Void Hunter command vessel, Captain Walker stared at the pulsing organic core. His team had set up a defensive perimeter while he worked to understand the alien technology. The walls around them seemed alive, reacting to their presence with subtle movements. "I think I've got it," Walker said finally, his voice tight with urgency. "The entire Void Hunter fleet operates as a single organism. This is its brain." He activated his communication device, hoping the signal would reach through the interference. "Thunderchild, this is Walker. Do you copy?" After several tense seconds, Admiral Rice's voice crackled through. "We read you, Walker. What have you found?" "They're vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies," Walker explained, transmitting the data from his scanner. "Their biological components can't handle disruption at 15.8 MHz. Hit them with enough power at that frequency, and it should cascade through their entire network. On Thunderchild's bridge, Davis received Walker's transmission and turned to Reyes. "Admiral, we could modify our communication arrays to broadcast at that frequency, but we'd need to get much closer to their main fleet. And we'd need more power than we currently have available," Wright added. "After the battle damage, we're running at 60% capacity." Reyes studied the tactical display. The remaining war giants, Thunderchild, Valiant, Judgment, and Retribution, were surrounded by Void Hunter vessels. Defiance's sacrifice had created a temporary gap, but it was closing fast. "There is one way," Reyes said quietly. "The fusion cores." The senior officers exchanged glances, understanding immediately what she meant. "The Ragnarok Protocol," Fletcher whispered. Reyes nodded grimly. "If we deliberately overload all 4 remaining fusion cores while broadcasting at the target frequency, the resulting electromagnetic pulse would propagate through their entire fleet," Davis finished. "The energy release would be catastrophic," Reyes said. "For them and for us." The command center fell silent as the weight of the decision settled over them. "Is there any other way?" Wright asked. "Not with the time and resources we have," Reyes answered. She straightened her uniform. "Send the recall order to Walker's team. Then broadcast to all war giants. Authorization Reyes Delta 7-1. Prepare to initiate Ragnarok Protocol." While the orders went out, Reyes moved to a private communication station. She recorded a final message, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. "This is Admiral Elena Reyes of Earth's United Nations Space Command. If you are receiving this, we have succeeded in our final mission. The alien force known as the Void Hunters has been neutralized, but at great cost. All 5 war giants and their crews have been lost. What we discovered here was not just a distress call, but an advance warning. Earth was the Void Hunters' next target. They have consumed countless civilizations before us, but they will consume no more. To the families of those who served on Thunderchild, Defiance, Valiant, Retribution, and Judgment, your loved ones did not die in vain. They gave their lives so that Earth might live. This is Admiral Elena Reyes, signing off." She encoded the message with the highest priority and set it to launch toward Earth in a specially designed communication probe. "Walker's team is aboard," Fletcher reported. "All war giants report ready for Ragnarok Protocol." Reyes took her place in the command chair one last time. "All ships, move to final positions. Prepare to overload fusion cores on my mark." The 4 remaining war giants pushed forward, forming a tight formation at the heart of the Void Hunter fleet. On each vessel, engineers bypassed safety systems and prepared their massive power plants for one final devastating release. "Frequency modulators calibrated," Davis reported, broadcasting at 15.8 MHz. Throughout the Void Hunter fleet, ships began to twitch and falter as the disruptive frequency took effect. But there were too many, too spread out for the broadcast alone to stop them. Reyes looked around at her crew, feeling immense pride despite the circumstances. "It has been my greatest honor to serve with you all." She took a deep breath and gave her final order. "Execute Ragnarok Protocol." Now, the 4 war giants simultaneously overloaded their fusion cores while broadcasting the disruption frequency. The energy buildup lasted only seconds before culminating in a blinding flash that expanded outward in a perfect sphere of destruction. The electromagnetic pulse, magnified by the specific frequency, ripped through the Void Hunter fleet. Their organic technology, so advanced in many ways, proved fatally vulnerable to this targeted attack. Ship after ship shuddered and went dark as the wave passed through them. And at the center of it all, the war giants themselves were consumed by their own final weapon. 3 months later, on Earth, the communication probe arrived. The message spread quickly across the planet, the sacrifice of the war giants becoming legend almost overnight. In a solemn ceremony at UNSC headquarters, families gathered as Admiral Thompson unveiled a memorial wall bearing the names of all who had been lost. At its center, a simple inscription read, "They went as saviors. They fought as warriors." In the end, nothing survived, except humanity's future. In the years that followed, Earth built a new generation of war giants, more powerful than the first. They named the first one Rise and sent it to patrol the stars, a guardian against the darkness, a promise to any other threat that might emerge from the void. Earth remembers. Earth stands ready. Earth survives.